The rain fell quietly on Lagos that evening. The sound of it against the glass windows felt like a song of sorrow, an endless reminder that the sky too could cry. Inside a small office filled with files and the dull hum of a ceiling fan, Hannah sat opposite Eric. They did not look like two people who loved each other. They looked like strangers forced to share the same room, the same table, the same silence. Hannah's fingers trembled as she clutched a pen. Before her lay a contract, pages filled with legal words she hardly understood but fully feared. Eric's lawyer had written it. It was simple in its cruelty. She would marry Eric for 1 year. She would appear as his wife in public, in family events, in the media. She would not question him, not ask for his heart, not ask for his bed. At the end of the year, she would walk away with a large sum of money that could save her dying mother in the hospital. Hannah swallowed the lump in her throat. Her mother, the only light in her life, had been fighting a heart condition. The doctors had demanded millions she could never raise. She had prayed, cried, begged. No help came. Then Eric appeared, like a shadow dressed as salvation. "Sign it, Hannah," Eric said, his voice deep but empty. "Your mother's surgery will be paid for tomorrow morning." Hannah looked at him. He was tall, handsome, but cold. His eyes were tired, carrying secrets he would not share. She wanted to ask why me, why this, but she had no right. Poverty had already stolen her pride. Her tears fell as she signed. A contract of love that was not love. A marriage written in ink but not in hearts. And as she signed, she whispered inside her soul, "Love by contract, sex by choice. This is not my dream, but this is my sacrifice." Eric's mansion was wide, beautiful, and lifeless. The walls were white, the floor polished, the air scented with roses that smelled like loneliness. Hannah moved in 2 days after the wedding, wearing a borrowed gown, smiling for cameras, shaking hands with people who congratulated her without knowing the truth. Every night she slept in the guest room, Eric in his master bedroom. The contract was clear. There would be no forced touch, no forced intimacy. But the silence between them was heavy. Hannah cooked meals he barely ate. She left notes he never read. She folded his clothes, arranged his books, watered the flowers. She filled the house with small acts of care, but nothing reached him. Eric came home late, often smelling of alcohol, sometimes with lipstick stains on his shirt. Hannah never asked. She had no right. She was only a wife by contract. But in the quiet of her room, she wept, not because she loved him, but because her heart longed to be loved. Weeks passed. Hannah began to notice things about Eric. He was not cruel. He was simply broken. He would stand by the window for long hours, staring into the night as though searching for someone who would never return. He often carried a small picture in his wallet, one he thought no one saw. But Hannah saw. It was of a woman, smiling, glowing. One evening, Hannah found him drunk in the living room. His head rested on the couch, his hands shaking. He whispered a name, Amaka. Hannah's heart tightened. She realized then, Eric had once loved. Deeply, fiercely, but he had lost it. And now, he was punishing himself, and her. That night, Hannah sat on the floor of her room, hugging her knees. She whispered to herself, "Love is a reflection. Sometimes it reflects joy, sometimes it reflects pain, but always, it leaves a mark." It happened on a rainy night. Eric came home, drenched, angry, his clothes soaked, his face pale. He had been in a fight with his father, about marriage, about inheritance, about duties he did not want. He slammed the door, threw his jacket on the floor, and collapsed into a chair. Hannah, frightened but gentle, approached him. For the first time since they married, she reached out. She placed her hand on his shoulder. He stiffened. "Don't," he muttered, but she did not remove it. Slowly, carefully, she leaned closer and wrapped her arms around him. It was not a wife embracing a husband. It was a soul embracing another soul. Eric froze. He wanted to push her away, but her warmth, her silence, her quiet strength, something broke inside him. He buried his face into her shoulder and wept. The mansion that had known only silence now heard the sound of his sobs. Hannah held him. She did not ask questions. She did not demand explanations. She only gave him the gift of presence. That night, for the first time, Eric slept peacefully, with his head on her lap. Hannah whispered, "Sometimes love is not in the words we speak, but in the embrace we give. Sometimes an embrace is more powerful than a kiss." Days turned into weeks. Eric began to change. He started eating the meals Hannah cooked. He asked about her day. He laughed once, soft, unsure, but real. Hannah saw glimpses of the man behind the wall of pain. One evening, after dinner, they sat together watching television. Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. The silence grew heavy, but not like before. This was a silence of longing. Eric turned to her. His eyes searched hers. "Hannah," he whispered. She knew what he wanted, but she also knew what the contract said. This has to be my choice," she said softly. Eric nodded. He waited. Hannah's heart pounded. She thought of her mother, still healing. She thought of her own loneliness, her hunger for affection. She thought of the nights she had cried herself to sleep, and the nights she had seen him broken. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It was not passion, it was not duty, it was a choice. That night, they shared a bed, not because a contract demanded it, but because their hearts finally permitted it. Sex by choice, love by sacrifice, a reflection of pain and embrace. But happiness in Nollywood stories is always fragile. One morning, Hannah's mother died. The surgery had been successful, but complications after recovery claimed her life. Hannah collapsed on the hospital floor, screaming, broken. Eric was there. He held her, carried her, wept with her. But in that moment, Hannah realized something cruel. She had given up her freedom, her dignity, her body, for a mother who was now gone. What was left of her? At the funeral, Eric stood beside her. People whispered about their love, their marriage, their beauty. But Hannah's heart was empty. That night, she told Eric, "Our contract, it should end now. My mother is gone. There is no reason to stay." Eric looked at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "But Hannah, I need you." She shook her head. "No, you need your healing, not me." And she walked away. Months passed. Hannah lived in a small apartment, alone. She worked as a teacher, earning little, but surviving. She avoided the newspapers that carried Eric's name. But at night, she remembered him. His laughter, his tears, his embrace. One evening, there was a knock on her door. She opened it. Eric stood there. He looked thinner, weaker, but his eyes were clear. "Hannah," he whispered, "I ended the contract. I ended the lies. I ended the fights. Now I just want the truth." She stared at him, her heart trembling. "And the truth is?" she asked. He stepped closer. His hands shook as he reached for hers. "The truth is, I love you. Not by contract, not by duty, not by need, but by choice." Tears filled Hannah's eyes. She remembered her whisper months ago. Love by contract, sex by choice. And now here he was, offering love by choice. She embraced him, and in that embrace, pain found healing, sacrifice found meaning, and loneliness found home.